Hello, today this is Down with the Heart, Crystal Meach, and today I have Tobie Saad with me today, and he is an energy practitioner slash oracle and soul purpose activator. So I can't wait to hear what that is and more about what you do.
Thank you, Crystal. I am elated for the opportunity to be here with you today and to be on your podcast. So, energy practitioner, it's funny for me to say that to people because I feel like we're all energy first and everything that we do is energy, though oftentimes even in a session with people, I'll break from our talk component to the table component by saying, well, now are you ready to do some energy work? Even though we're always doing energy work because we are energy first and material second. And then I even question if we're material at all, but that's another story. Perhaps we'll get there within our conversation today. Perhaps we won't. So this started a long time ago for me. I've always seen the world in what I thought was the way everyone saw the world, and perhaps in many ways we all are similar like this. But when you're a young person and you begin talking to people, you quickly realize that we're not all seeing the world the same way, and nor are we approaching things from a similar perspective. So I adore people and I really like connecting with them. And I certainly don't want to send people running away from me or feeling afraid. So talking about dead people as a young person was something that I did with some frequency. I was the granddaughter of a family of funeral directors. And so grew up as a young person around a funeral home and the funeral parlor, the preparation of a body for the family members and related individuals to come. My grandfather did the embalming on site. Often their house was right over top of the funeral home. And so death was a very ever-present part of the reality of our lives. It was never anything hidden. And so I thought, well, of course, everybody's talking about dead people. And no, people aren't really talking about dead people at all. And my grandmother was a cosmetologist to the dead. And so I would sit next to her while she would prop a picture that the family had given her up and apply makeup and do the hair and fashion the person in the ways that the people who love her most or him were most frequently acquainted with experiencing them. And again, it's love and care and preparation of the body for celebration. I'm a huge proponent of the green dyeing movement and the bringing of death back into the home for a lot of reasons, largely seeing it handled up close and personal, but in every event. So I lived a mostly normal life, Midwestern part of the United States and Ohio, though, always like, well, there was this other world. And as I grew up, I realized that not everyone wanted to talk about it necessarily, but there were times when people would open windows. And I largely thought that I was going to live a life doing other things and that this was just going to be something that I outgrew or was just going to be a part of, I don't know, whatever story that was. But, probably by my early 20s, I realized that this thing wasn't going to go away and that increasingly the richness associated with my expression through psychic sensibility and through mediumship, well, really everything talks to me. And so a large part of my experience has been like, toggling between this isn't real and I'm a crazy person and I also want to hang out with other people. And so how do I, as a highly, and this is before we use words like empathic and intuitive, it was like you were psychic and you might see psychic people at psychic fairs or you might know them. I think we all are intuitive, though, depending upon our comfort level with acknowledging extrasensory perception information as being allowable or real to us is based on our family coding. So it wasn't like, oh, I'll just, I couldn't leave it. I couldn't leave it behind. And then shortly after my children were born in my early 30s, a girlfriend of mine turned me on to a sound healing workshop, and it was like that was the training that cracked open everything wide, as you know. And before it was a similar gig to some of us might attend or even host ourselves these days, info opportunity Friday night. And then like participants would have a closed experience of instruction with solfeggio tuning forks, and then practicum on the Sunday. And I was so like ignited by the solfeggio tuning forks, which had only just been cast in the year 2000. The solfeggio tunes were pulled from the Book of Numbers in the, well, any version of the Bible that has the Book of Numbers, and turned into a range of frequencies that were associated with each of the chakras, and that a particular outfit had found in therapeutic settings were yielding amazing results for people in terms of creating transformation, allowing them to sleep more easily, allowing people to process emotions with greater ease. And so a man named David Hulse approached Jean Beaulieu, who at the time was one of the longest standing therapeutic tuning fork manufacturers. And he said, can you make a set of tuning forks with the solfeggio range, which is 196 to 841? And he said, I can. And they did. And that opened everything. And I think we all have a moment in which we're absolutely sure of our life path. And then it becomes like, well, okay, now I'm going to get out of my own way in whatever way that happens. And so I put out a shingle, mostly trading with people and getting experience as a self-selected practitioner, because I didn't grow up in a lineage. I do have Druidic, Celtic, Druidic, and Shekinah bloodlines that I do access, though like many of us these days, we're working outside of a specific lineage. And it was weird, because my group wasn't earmarking me and complicit with my choices to pursue interlocuting between non-ordinary reality and ordinary reality. And so we often, when we're self-selected, have to navigate our own training, as well as the leaps and bounds by which we're, excuse me, lots of throat clearing happening as I'm talking about, but the leaps and bounds by which we suddenly are awakening to what we decide is our journey. And walk alongside ourselves as our wise, older elder, bringing our ancestors forward, bringing our soul family and team forward. And many of us, may or may not have that in operation at the time that we begin to crack wide open. So it can be a really jagged experience of moving outside of your comfort zone. Fortunately, in my own experience, when I was 3, 4, and 5, I had lots of information about madness and the diagnosis of madness being something that could be decided from outside oneself, and that would render you without a voice. And so I realized early on that I was in a social setting or milieu or time and place where there were invisible lines around what was allowable behavior and what was not allowable behavior. And that non-allowed, like really early, and this is coding that just came as a download that like, oh, okay, and while you're here, know that. And so when I was, 7, 8, or 9, it was like, okay, so it's really important here to have an integrated personality. And I felt, I still feel thousands of people looking out of my eyes. And so I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to need to have one diplomatic emissary at a time engaging with the outward world in order for me to mask my multidimensionality as a being. And so I'm like, oh, all right. And I just took that as like, oh, the game that we play is, I'm like, oh, okay. So fast forward to my mid 30s where, it's like, ego decimation every day as a mother and a parent and a mom, like, he's like, I construct myself as this ego identity. And then I crumble and I ground myself into dust in the heart of God and the earth every night, crying and recombining myself with dark chocolate only to rise again the next day, and I would trade it for the world, though it's a reconstellation of the self and a necessity to allow a collapse and an ego death that happens in such quick frequency. Your mind is unable to keep up and purposefully, and so where we can surrender to the alchemical transmutation that happens both through the 30s as a part of our larger planetary returns and coming into, I mean, Saturn return is late 20s, right? So there's some hard correction going on if we haven't been living in alignment with our soul purpose. And we can just say that those are the files that we selected to focus. It's, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that we hold in like a line item, detailing in our head. But my assertion is that if we have a body, there's a reason that we chose embodiment, or we wouldn't have a body. We just wouldn't be here on the earth. So, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. So I was like, okay. So I was able to negotiate it knowing that I was moving outside of the social construction of what people understand as a coherent, integrated personality. And so much of my work with my clients, whether I work one-on-one or in groups, is about finding your way in a world that really capitalizes upon being lost, that really capitalizes upon feeling insecure. And we're in a really potent time. Oh my goodness, the last 5 years, whoosh, in terms of bringing us to the precipice of an invitation to fully occupy our bodies. And that's what Aquarius to me is saying. It's inviting us to saying, you know what? You've rocked it out. And it's not like, boom, the lights go on and Aquarius is happening. It's a very just like, integrated, soft filter. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, how did it become dawn? It was just dark and I could hear the evening animals happening. And so, the transition of the ages that we're involved in is a movement from this experience of locating ourselves, I feel like. It's all about location, okay? And Pisces invited us to locate ourselves by reflection. I see you, you see me. I love you, you love me. And so in many ways, we could say that we fleshed out the surface area of maybe something similar to a roll of paper towels, a cylinder, a core column of light. And our spine is the denser expression of that, right? This core column of light. And Aquarius is like, good job. Now that you know where you are, get in the body. And so you could say this is one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of people decide to leave the planet right now. We can code it in whatever narrative that is happening in the 3 to 5D, though Aquarius is saying, hey, you have a body. Gone is the opportunity to phone it in. And I'll be honest, I'm a reformed phoner inner. I was just like smoking my cosmic cigarette, and wherever my home base is, going like, that? You want me to get in that? That's so small. I don't even know how I'd fit in there. That's the smallest place. I'm like, maybe. And then I'm just like, well, and I did attempt suicide 3 times before 18. So there were various reasons why I was like, I'm not doing it. But I was like, maybe I'll just keep the lights on and vacation there occasionally. It's like, it's a fixer-upper, but we'll see what we can do. And Aquarius is like, boom, hey, you there. Sell the property. Okay, and there's a lot of people who are selling the property. Let it go back to the earth and leave, or get all the way in. Get all the way in. And don't close the door. But toggle 1 foot in non-ordinary reality, 1 foot in ordinary reality. And as you breathe, allow yourself to be bipedal in that interactivity of both and as an expression of yourself. So the work that I do with clients emerged through this. And I was like, I can work through, I've done so many different, I love expressing myself through lots of different ways. So I've done a gazillion different types of jobs, and I've done like a lot of ordinary jobs because it's a really amazing way to connect with so many different types of people. Let's see, now it's 5 years ago, I was going to go into stand-up comedy. But I was like, well, I'll let you have a choice. I said to myself, I was like, okay, stand-up comedy or substitute teaching high schoolers. And I was like, ooh,
What about
substitute
both?
teaching high schoolers, but both. Well, the thing is, I found myself riffing at the beginning of rituals with groups, and I was like, does somebody need to have an open mic? Is that what's going on? Do you want to get out there with some comedy? I was like, yeah, maybe I do. And I also am really interested in political consciousness. And to me, I do a lot of work around the arcane art of conversation, because to come into a foundational practice with everything speaking to you is cultivating a conversation. You know, we can go to our guides and be demanding enfant terrible, or we can really build rapport with elements of our experience that have tremendous capacity for support and for meaningful reflection in how we translate this experience. I feel like we are the altars, and our lives are the living prayers. And in every breath, we have an opportunity for an expression through that. So the high school experience was tremendously fun, because I got to see, like, you know, what are these kids thinking? You know, like, you can imagine what kids are thinking. And I have 3 children. They'll be 20, 23, and 24 this year. But you're just like,
Yeah, what's that old?
what's that? I don't look that old. Well, I feel like I'm 54 this year. I feel like this constant willingness to die to each day and be reborn. And so that I can really, like, my focus is presence, is calibrating my senses to this spine, January 31st, 2024, and maintaining a connection to the breath here, and inviting all other aspects of myself home. And having and being around kids is so helpful to the
Yeah.
mulching of ego death. You know, it's like, you know, because I get all right about my stuff. And then, you know, you've got so many different ways to reconstellate it when you open yourself to the joyful effervescence of people who are coming into their power, right? You know, and everything's an open-ended question. You're like, well, I don't know. And so, you know, my goal as a practitioner is not to stamp people with my magic or my methods. In fact, I was reflecting with a friend of mine who's like, Tobie, that when I was a university professor working in the geography departments, my colleague one time said to me, he's like, you know, you're quite hard on your students. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you take them to the end of the pier and you throw them into the water, or you let them dive if they ask to dive. And I was like, well, they signed up for swimming classes. I mean, aren't we doing the thing? And he's like, you don't tell them how deep the water is. You don't tell them where the sides are. You don't, you know, give them any stroke tips. You know,
What?
you're just like, and I was like, well,
Sink or swim.
sink or swim. Right. Let's see, because you can't get ready to get ready.
Yeah.
You're either ready or you're not ready. And I'm there. I mean, I wasn't phoning it in. I was there. We were doing the thing. And in many ways, that's what working with me is like, because it's not my magic that I'm leading you to.
Mhm.
I'm holding a tone. I'm very adept energetically. I have the capacity to constellate and reconstellate within the scope of multiple tsunamis, and to really be able to articulate it um, to the nth degree. So I can model as a gateway through the void. And so a lot of my work, and I love the swimming analogy, because a lot of my work is reminding people that they know how to swim. And so many of us are like white knuckled on the sides, or we're maybe just dipping our toes in. And I had a funny conversation from a beautiful person who said, you know, Tobie, because I just work in client session, there were many years where I would call in the angelic realm, because I've been doing the work for 25 years in client construct. Though, you know, we're all energy workers our whole lives, whether we're, you know, consciously complicit, or we train, or we have a practice, or we don't. Um, where it would call the angelic realm, or invite people to bring in whoever they were working with. You're working with Jesus Christ, or you're working with Kuan Yin. And about, I don't know, 10 years ago, Crystal, I couldn't rightly tell who was answering the phone when I called those realms. And to me, I hold a rigorous gargantuan container for my clients to do very sacred and intimate work. And if it's a group, it's for multiple people to do that. And um, my greatest invitation is to hold a very clear and safe, open space for the work, which means I don't care if you think I'm cool or not. I'm not here to impress you with parlor tricks. I, in every instance, want to keep you out of harm's way. And there's a lot of energy moving around that doesn't have um, a sensibility that is like that. So the last thing that I'm going to do is open the space to X Factor random or list the call, so to speak, so that everybody can come on down and join us, and because that's not in our best interest
Yeah.
for the work. Even metering how I speak in the sacred space of the hyper opening, walking through the Holy of Holies, is a part of the practice because it is such sacred work.
Mhm.
So it's a container that is organized with source and with Pachamama. And then a client brings their guides, their soul family, their team, their essence. Some people call it a holy guardian angel, their ancestors, and their body deva, the spirit of their body. So I mean, there's a lot of people or and entities, we could say, or aspects of correspondence available just with the client themselves. So a colleague said to me, "I don't get it. What about Archangel Michael? I mean, isn't it all love, Tobie? Aren't you just talking about love?" And I was like, well, if you finally let go of the side of the pool and you're swimming and you're like, okay, this is okay, and a pool noodle comes along, Archangel Michael, and you hold on to that pool noodle, you're not swimming on your own. And so I love floating. I love being supported while I float. I also love knowing how to swim. And so that's my perspective when I work with people. I'm leading you to the fountain of your Holy of Holies. You already know where it is. Well, I'm going to hold a container for you to luxuriate in it, to really bring every cell fiber and every layer of your energetic anatomy into correspondence and harmony with your soul song so that every moment, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you can, in a breath, reconnect with the palpability of that harmonic field and throw it up like a flame around you. Let's just say 10 meters above and below, front and back, side and side, and be in a harmonic field that nourishes you. Because we're coming to a place where our senses, what we're seeing dramatized, is both something we're being called to witness and at the same time hold our tones. And there's a lot of deliberate orchestration of particular vignettes for the purposes of creating certain feeling senses. And so we're being called to rehabilitate our own inner knowingness of what is true and what is not true so that we can rightly discern right action, collective action, you know? And so we talk a lot about putting the oxygen mask on first, Crystal, but this idea of like, well, what does that look like? How do I then orient myself energetically in each day so that my reference points are allowing me to experience an at-one-ment with source and the earth that calibrates me coherently, and from there I begin to engage and create and connect and offer witness and heal or not heal or not any of these things. And so the invitation is for a coherence that then is the starting point for engagement. And I obviously like talking with my hands.
Um, that was a lot. I can't,
That was a lot.
yeah, I can't unpack all that in in the session we have, but what really resonated for me in what you said was about the body. Like, so first of all, acknowledging you have this soul or higher self or I don't know, and and
Right,
um, and it's it's not like sitting out there attached to you. It's running the show, and the body is manifesting. And I know like some people they get to the body, like they go through a trauma and then that body holds that trauma, right?
right.
And then they don't want to be in that body anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
So, like, the trauma, like, dealing with the trauma, like, could you speak more about that?
yeah. No,
Like,
I appreciate, I appreciate that reflection. So, I joke about smoking a cosmic cigarette, looking at my body and saying it's far too small real estate. But what it felt like to be in my body would be like, because I had a lot of trauma from this life stream and other life streams. Like if you took a perfectly buttery soft leather glove out and you let your dog chew on it and then bury it, and then someone used it to float things in a pool, and then it got buried again. And so that it just is like furled. There's not a lot of space in it, and the body is so smart. The body is so smart that it protects the spirit. And so we can think of like, the Arthurian legend of the sword and the stone. And in many of the renderings, it's that Arthur's the only one. Well, really, we are Arthur, okay? And the sword is our spirit, and the stone is our mortal coil. The stone is our body. And so if we choose to become conscious in this experience, what we're doing is choosing to co-create in partnership. And the body, when it is traumatized or has an imprint, it is running an open current, preparing for the next time that happens, because it was so like uh, uh, disorganizing and dysregulating. Okay, it was a shock to the system that the body is going to prepare for the next time it happens. And so one of the ways to think about this is like, it's if we honor and acknowledge that we are piezoelectric batteries, meaning we run through crystals, okay, because of the crystalline structures within our cells. Um, there, we are operating in a universe that has two main principles: lowest amount of energy and highest amount of disorganization. And so I'll explain this to you really simply. Highest amount of disorganization is what happens when is proven by taking a cap off a bottle of alcohol and the alcohol evaporating over time. So the molecules of alcohol, once the pressure shifts with the removal of the cap, will get as far away from each other as they can because they prefer that. And it's because the alcohol wants to be at its lowest energy state it possibly can. And the lowest energy state is the molecules as far as they can be from each other. Neon is also an example of this. When we plug in a neon sign, there's a consistent electrical beam activating an element, and all elements have a flame test that's unique to them. That's why we can do spectral analysis of stars. And so as the atoms are excited, they receive the charge, and as they release the charge, the color is emitted. So emotions are charged. They are energy in motion. And when emotions become trapped in the body, we are holding a voltage. And the body wants to come to a place of 0 point. And so one of the ways that the work that I do assist people is it integrates the body. What would be a way to say this? In ways that you don't have to process. I work with sacred geometry and the body's inherent knowingness, because the body emerges through Platonic and Archimedean geometric solids, okay? To release the charge from all time points simultaneously so that the body can experience a letdown and a somatic still point. And one of the ways that that happens is the first process of crystalline consciousness technique, which is a tool that I use, brings the body in harmony with the heartbeat of the earth as closely as it can come. And so essentially what we're doing is we're working together to ground. And then once we ground, we have the capacity to unwind imprints. And I'm not necessarily doing for people what people can't do for themselves. However, it's often the case with much energy work and any energy modalities that we're like, oh, that's a thing. So if someone's like, oh yeah, you can use sacred geometry to calibrate over multiple timelines and clear somatic imprints that are unraveling like open currents, causing you to not want to be in your body or causing chronic unhealed situations in your body physiology because of the basically you're not residing there. And so what happens is the same as happens if you leave your house and don't stop your mail or your newspapers or, landscape anymore. It's a similar type of situational deterioration from non-occupancy, essentially.
Wow. And I'm just thinking of like some of the tools like you mentioned, is it solfeggio? Is that how you
Yeah,
say
the
it?
solfeggio.
Yeah, cuz like before I even knew you or how this worked, um the big thing for me was I used to meditate and it was an hour every day and it
I
was
think about that. I
with
love that.
frequencies and it's kind of like they call it a sound bath, but um it's kind of like it puts you at that frequency or it's healing the body in some way by being
Well,
with frequencies.
I'm so sorry to speak over you. I'm very excited to talk about this with you. And that's a really good observation to talk about because one of the reasons that the sound is so effective, Crystal, and I think this is, and I also want to laud you for your willing prioritization of your spiritual health by engaging in an hour sound bath daily. Okay, because sound and all scalar frequency modalities approach health and healing and vitality before the personalities leave, before the stories. Okay, and when we get on the other side or before the stories, we're not already spinning a lot of resistance to change. Okay, we're open, we're available to change. We have a certain plasticity within our physiology, throughout all, we'll just say across all energy layers. And so that's everything. That's our mental age, our physiology, our general plasticity of our tendons, you name it. And so when we subject this beautiful body through the auditory canal to sound medicine, we're conditioning ourselves to be in attunement with our core column of light, our inner river of light. Because the question is, well, what am I attuning to? You're attuning to you, like the pure you, the brilliant, knows everything across all time and space you. And, the invitation is to bear that in sensibility and then surrender into the live a day life, okay, where we're being asked to like both hold this context and not think about it all the time, but to really be in our heart and just be sewing our fractals together. And that's a shorthand for, some might say, the reason embodiment is so important is because we're calling all aspects of ourselves home. And the only way to do that is to sew them together through the heart of the body on the planet Earth right now. And so if this is a story that resonates with you, then it makes sense to get into the heart, to set the big dream of the tone, the saturation of the self and the inner river of light, and then to just fall asleep in the doing of the dishes, the driving the kids in car line, the picking the books up from the library, the paying your bills, or the choosing to live outside of the contemporary system, whatever it is. Do it and do it wholeheartedly and allow yourself to really knit your fractals together, knowing that you're having the big dream simultaneously. Because we are dreaming here. And quite frankly, my sense is that in the forms that we're being called to come in the next, we don't know what those are. And we don't necessarily have in our immediate hopper of reference points from this life stream really good examples of what could come in, And so sometimes I'll just say to the universe, show me how good it can get. I'm not even going to cap it, because I accept that I'm living a finite life with a beginning point and an ending point. And while I might have an infinite spirit, I've got a mind that has finite edges. And I'm more than willing to surrender to the mystery, but I'm also willing to surrender to things blowing my mind because I can't possibly imagine them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all like triggering for me, like the memory that we have in each cell that we're not even conscious of.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a cornerstone of my practice is glowing slowly to go fast. And when we go slowly, we can really get pixel by pixel by pixel by pixel by pixel. And what we're looking for is distorted geometries. That's all. We don't have to, make a big break or say that things are trash to get rid of them. We can say, wow, this story served me so well. And it's too small. I surrender it. Well, I pivot to the next. And I'm going to fully surrender it so that my pivot is complete and I'm available to welcome in, a practice of at the end of the day, bringing all of your energy for that day to your core. And if there's any part that's like, just take that few minutes and just hold that part. And you don't have to do anything. You just offer witness. Just say, I see you, tender part. And then when you're ready, zip it up, let go of the day, and be complete. Literally die to the day.
Mm-hmm.
If we trust that what is meant for us can't miss us, I don't have to drag anything in my awareness between yesterday and today. I can just go, woo, complete refresh. I can go back to wherever I go with my cosmic cigarettes. Ah, yes. I chose to live there and it was wonderful, It keeps getting better. I keep meeting amazing people who want to talk about energy.
Yeah. I do. Every moment.
Exactly. I know, right? And so it's just like, oh, okay. I think, it's letting go. It's like a lot of us have pain to promise stories. And we worked hard. We worked hard for that lemonade. And so we imagine that growth only occurs through suffering and resistance. And it can. I'm not going to tell people they're wrong. Okay. It's your way.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Exactly. Though it can, what about growth occurring through love and more love? And more love and more love and more love and more love. And so this withholding and banishing and bleh doesn't have to happen. It's like, well, that last breath, woo, that was good. I don't know. Okay, ready? And we're back. And that's it. Well, hello, visitor. Oh, I'll drink to that, Crystal.
I know. The kitty wanted to join. She
Well,
wanted.
you know what? They do.
Yeah.
They do. Thank you, Kitty, for punctuating our comments with your body.
Yeah.
Honestly, they say it so clearly.
I know. And in perfect timing.
Yeah, always. Always. Yeah, so it's a joy to be alive right now. I think we're really stretched to continue. I talked to a beautiful flower essence practitioner that I know. Her name is Maribeth Swan of Swan Essences. Very, very, very gifted. Um, and she mentioned that she's occasionally accused of bright siding. People just like, how can you? Don't you know how horrible things are right now? And quite frankly, on the ground, it is really bad in many quadrants right now. And so the invitation is, how do we brush our teeth and allow ourselves, if we're finding flow in what we feel our calling is, to be in that flow and to radiate that flow? And my invitation is an adage that we probably heard a gazillion times. As we heal ourselves, so too is the earth healed. As the earth is healed, so too are we. And so as I lean into my joy, as I affirm my joy as I'm brushing my teeth because I have the opportunity to be in a place that is warm and dry and, I get to brush my teeth at a mirror, radiating from that place as a part of interconnectivity to all that is, that includes the darkest of dark and the lightest of light right now. We're in a global purification cycle. And it's pretty fetid what's being turned up, and we're being invited to be present while there is a tilling. This is Tobie's 2 cents about these times. And we're tilling generations of inhumanity to each other. And this is what we're being called to look at together. And it's being exposed. It's the exposure and the looking that is the thing. Okay. Everyone's like, what are we going to do? And my sense is regulate our nervous systems and co-regulating groups, because we're in a period of reconciliation with who we are that allows us to bring all of this energy home. So we're working on a collective, the same thing. We're bringing all of this energy home, and this energy returns home through a reconciliation and a witnessing of what is. So allow yourself to look, allow yourself to rest, allow yourself still point, allow yourself to grieve, allow yourself to be luminously joyful, allow yourself to be withholding, allow yourself to create contrast. The invitation is, how do you reconnect with yourself? My son suggested to me the other day that perhaps the infinite forgiveness of Jesus Christ is the consistent reminder that we never ate the apple because there is no apple.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. And we're back. Oh, right. And so allowing ourselves to not be our worst decision, either collectively or individually, and trusting that leaning into the opening of the very next breath is often the first step in luxuriating in the salve of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking of, like, in everything you say, like, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And, like, he's in the worst of conditions. He's in Auschwitz, concentration camp. And I mean, everything has been taken from him. And yet they haven't taken his mind. And the, the space between a stimulus and response is your greatest freedom.
Yeah, that's the void. Right.
So, what you have, what you don't have in this world, it's all perception. I mean,
It is. It is. And oftentimes we need to ask ourselves, if we feel things have changed or we've seen things changed, what has changed, because sometimes we have a huge emotional response, but when we look around, nothing's changed. All the things that we are afraid are going to disappear are exactly there, and we've alighted to a future time, or we've alighted to a past time, or we've forgotten where we are in time. The memory is very important. Um, well, let me say this differently. We're being called to self-possession in a way that perhaps we never have before. I don't know that a lot of people realize how precious interiority is and occupying the self.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
And
Thank
it's exciting times. So thank you.
It was amazing. I mean, I think I want to end it like right there because I mean it was so it just flowed. I just love that.
I know, me too. I'm like, has it been 54 minutes?
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Thank you, beloved.
Thank you. I would love to have you on again.
Oh, you name it, I'll be there. I adore our connection and I would love to keep talking.
Yeah, me too. I will put your information in the description box below for anyone to contact
Okay,
you.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, is there anything else you want to mention before we hang up?
Oh, let's see. I am currently organizing one of my favorite containers. It's a 21-day container called Deep that is 21. Let's see, it's an activation-based energy management immersive. And so there are 21 crystalline consciousness sessions, one per day, starts at about 6 in the morning, uh, on-demand replays. But it's really an opportunity to move into the void and to practice setting up different reference points to allow you fluidity in these times. The next container launches in April, and I have sign up sheets for that. And then certainly there are in person opportunities in Toledo, Ohio for wintering retreats if you are in the 419.
Aw, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This is Tao of the Heart, and have a wonderful day.